Welcome to Monocle on Fashion, a show on Monocle Radio offering exclusive insights and global perspectives on the fashion industry. I'm Natalie Theodosi, Monocle's fashion director and your host. And today we're looking back at the month-long Fashion Week marathon, which ended this Tuesday in Paris. Since January, we've been following shows in Copenhagen, London, Milan, and Paris, and the experience has been both wonderful and intense. To me, it also turned the spotlight on the challenges the fashion industry has been grappling with and made room for important conversations. Why are so many creative directors leaving their positions or being pushed out? And what do you even need to succeed as a creative director in fashion today? Does the brand always come first? Or is there still room for creativity and left-field thinking? As the shows were unfolding, Luke and Lucy Meyer stepped down from their positions as co-creative directors of Jil Sander. Simone Bellotti left his post at Bali to replace them, and Donatella Versace announced plans to step down from the brand her brother founded as its owners look to sell. It's a lot of upheaval for an industry that has traditionally been allergic to any form of change aside from hemlines and color palettes. The pace of change has raised further questions about the format of the fashion show itself. Is it time to return to a more intimate format and focus on craft rather than the spectacle? Plus, how are the different fashion capitals supporting their design talents? In London last month, there was a lot of worry about the limited number of shows and presentations on the calendar, meaning that this year London Fashion Week was a much more local affair, with international buyers choosing to skip a trip to the British capital. The city's creative scene does need a big reset, from supporting arts education to mentoring young designers for more than a couple of seasons and ensuring that they are in a position to survive in the long term. Still, the designers present in the London Fashion Week calendar offered glimmers of optimism with their collections. It's incredible to witness the evolution of the SS Daily brand, for instance, which has expanded into women's wear and accessories and offers reimagined British classics with just the right amount of humor. A designer like Simone Rocha is another firm favorite, always delivering the most romantic, mesmerizing shows while maintaining a sharp focus on her niche. As for Burberry, which closed London Fashion Week with a show at the Tate Britain, the tide seems to be turning under new CEO Joshua Schulman. The brand is back to celebrating Britishness and what it does best, great outerwear. Judging by the amount of smiles in the room, we'll be seeing more of Burberry in shops and on the streets come next winter. A few hours after Burberry's evening show, at 7 a.m. in the morning to be exact, the fashion crew gathered at Heathrow Airport to go to Milan, just in time for the Gucci show. In Milan, this period of transition and uncertainty was felt particularly strongly. At Gucci, for one, the famous Ancora Red brand color was wiped out in favor of a forest green, following Sabato De Sarno's premature exit. Without its creative director, the collection too didn't make a clear statement as to the direction the brand is heading towards. The moments of joy and inspiration took place once again at Prada, where Raf Simons and Miuccia Prada mused about femininity during a time of political and social upheaval. In Paris, there was a lot more opportunity to rejoice, including 3 successful debuts at Givenchy, Dries Van Noten, and Tom Ford. It was so heartwarming to see Dries Van Noten sit front row at his label's show and cheer on the brand's new creative director, Julian Klausner, who trained under him. He blew us away with the way he played with embellishment and pattern. There's also plenty of talent spotting in Paris, starting with Belgian designer Marie-Adam Leonard, and an array of US-based talent who presented their collections more quietly in private showrooms. Ashleen Park, a Yohji Yamamoto veteran, is definitely one to watch, as is Lee Studios, another New York-based label. While in Paris, we also welcomed Monocle friends, editors, buyers and designers at our new cafe-cum-recording studio on 18 Rue Bachemont. They stopped for a quick coffee in between shows and offered us their own takes on Fashion Month. First up, we speak to Tiffany Hsu, Chief Brand Officer at Mytheresa, the luxury e-commerce platform known for its immaculate edit and powerful client base. Tiffany, who came in immaculately dressed in a Magda Buttrim head-to-toe look, gives us some of her highlights and offers a refreshing reminder that at the end of the day, most customers care about the end product being sold in stores, not about the creative director taking a bow at the end of a show. Let's hear from Tiffany Hsu, Chief Brand Officer at Mytheresa.
There's a lot of changes this season because a lot of big houses doesn't have creative director or waiting for the new creative director to come or to announce. So I think there's a lot of anticipation, and also I guess it felt a little bit like, oh, maybe we're missing something. There's a lot of big houses that weren't showing. So it did feel a little bit strange, I guess, and feel like slightly less fulfilled.
And I wonder, of course, you at Mytheresa, you're thinking about your customers first.
Yes.
And does that impact them when we care in the fashion industry, right?
Yeah.
Who's going where? Who are the new creative directors? Does that impact the end customer as much as we think it does, or do they not notice?
I think as immediate effect, they wouldn't really notice the creative director has left or new or whatever. But in terms of product offering, it does change. So, they might like an aesthetic of a brand for a long time, and the creative director changed, and the aesthetic changed, and they might gain or lose customers. So I think that it does affect them, but maybe the clients are unaware sometimes of like a change of a person. But they would notice, oh, I used to buy my dresses here, but now like they don't fit me anymore. That still happens. It still affects the client. Yeah, it's more like on the product end rather than.
I think that's an important point to make, and that everyone should kind of keep in the back of their mind, because there's so much
100%
drama around these appointments. But
Yes.
at the end of the day, the end customer cares about the product that they're buying in store and probably the experience that they're having when they're shopping, not who is taking a bow on the runway at the end of a show.
Yes, 100%. Definitely. It's all about the end customer. And also, what they see and what like maybe the press or what the buyers see, it's sometimes slightly different. Obviously, the buyers see more commerciality, what the clients would like, and the press sees more creativity and ideas. And then I guess that the buying is like we need to take both sides, because we don't want to see too much repetition either. But, commerciality in the end is very important if it serves the right customer.
Speaking of what you've been seeing, if we look at Paris, it's been a few days already.
Yes.
A lot of big debuts that
Yes.
happened.
Yes.
What were some of your highlights so far?
I think Alaya and Schiaparelli are definitely my highlights so far. And I think it's not just Paris, maybe of Fashion Week so far.
It's interesting.
Yeah, Alaya was stunning. Like really, really beautiful, so well crafted and different. The idea was very different. It was new. It's very avant-garde. It feels like a really nice new era for Alaya has like fully been established of like, the future, what it could be.
Amazing. And it's interesting. You were saying that as a buyer, you want creativity.
100%.
But things need to work commercially. And I think both Alaya and Schiaparelli, when you see it on the runway, it is very creative. It's so sculptural.
Yeah.
But then there's a lot for the end customer to choose from, and things that can be diluted to like every day. They fit women's bodies in really beautiful ways.
Every day, maybe not. But
true. Maybe I'm a bit too optimistic.
Yeah, maybe not. But there's still like, there are a lot of wearable pieces in the end. And like you said, because they're beautifully crafted, they're like things to keep for forever. I think they're so special. I mean, well, Schiaparelli, this is ready-to-wear, but it is a couture house. And Alaya is a ready-to-wear house, but the collection was almost couture. So they're extremely special pieces. And I think for a customer who are super elevated, who loves their fashion, will definitely buy things like this not just to wear, but also to keep.
Yeah.
Within their collection, they definitely, like you said, they do branch out into more commercial product that has, a little bit of a DNA from the collection.
In terms of discovery of younger brands as
yes.
well, anyone else that you spotted, whether here in Paris or in another city during this the latest round of fashion weeks?
Yeah, there's a new shoe brand that's coming out. They presented in New York, Herbert.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so it's an old shoe brand that's been revamped, and the designer's name is Trevor Hudson.
Okay. It's interesting you say New York, because one of the conversations that we've been having since the Fashion Week started is what's happening, this competition between the cities. Like, is New York still worth going to? Is London going to stay alive?
I hope London stays
Milan,
alive.
Same. I mean, it's our home city, right?
Yeah.
And then even in Milan, there was a bit of a different energy given the transitions that you were speaking about. So for you, from your perspective, you go pretty much everywhere.
Yes.
Do you think that it's all happening in Paris, especially for buying appointments, or is it still important to go and do the rounds?
We go to New York. I mean, there's a lot of contemporary brand coming out of US. So we do go there, not necessarily Fashion Week, but we do go there and see brands there. There is a lot out there on offer, maybe not so much kind of fashion show brands, let's say. The reason why the shoe collection was presented there, because the designer is American.
Sure.
But everything's made with Italian producers. So I guess, the relevancy of each fashion week, New York had a nice moment. It felt a little bit sparse, It probably didn't have to be so long. But, if you think about the road, they came out of New York.
True.
Kate's show was beautiful. Marc Jacob opened the show. Tom Brown came from New York. Tom Ford came from New York. It's just they left. It's not because there isn't talent in New York. There is, but, unfortunately, maybe Milan or Paris is a better stage for them because of the type of product they're offering. It's very elevated, so they might feel like it's a better fashion week for them, because New York Fashion Week, it's a bit of a mixed bag, I guess. There's a lot of young designers, and because maybe the way it's organized, you don't get to see them sometimes, which is quite sad. They don't have the right support, and doing shows are very, very expensive these days. And traveling is very expensive for people to take the whole team out to cities such as New York. So does it make sense? Yes, but, can everyone afford it? No. So, yeah.
So a lot more happening here this week for you.
Yeah, so much is that Paris is always a lot happening, because also brands who they do the runway show in New York. They take the collection to Paris to do the sales campaign because they were not ready during Fashion Week. So I think there's the hidden things that people don't really know what buyers do is after the Fashion Week, we do the buy after the shows. So the buying don't actually happen during the show. So we do the buying afterwards. So, our Fashion Week stretches out for a long time.
I think that's what people don't, the stuff that they don't get to see, or you placing orders and then figuring out your budgets like in the evening after the shows or right after everything wraps up.
Because also the show sometimes is only 30% of the collection. There is like a whole other commercial collection that normally you don't see on the runway. We buy pre-collection ahead of time. So we've been buying since January.
And what's the mood? I mean, within Mytheresa, but also just more generally when we look at the industry, is everyone quite cautious in terms of their budgets, in terms of the buys, or from the side of the designers in terms of the collections that they're showing, or are we seeing a bit of a return and a recovery in the market?
I think we're in a fortunate position, Mytheresa. The business is doing good for us. So we've always are in the position to invest in things that we believe in. So we continuously to grow our business in a very cautious way. We take risks, but they're calculated.
That's great. And from what you've seen so far, from what you're expecting to see in the next few days, give us like 3-4 of the brands that you're most looking forward to and your highlights?
Always Miu Miu and Saint Laurent, like personal favorites. And Balenciaga always put on a show. You know, it's always very innovative, very interesting. So I'm always looking forward to experience the show. I think those 3 are the brands that I look forward to the most.
Yeah, and they kind of wrap the whole month in such a beautiful way, right?
Because I think it's a bit of a change this time. And then I guess this is the transitional season for Chanel. So like next season, it will be the new creative director. And that I will really look forward to see.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, very much.
That was Tiffany Hsu, Chief Brand Officer at Mytheresa. Next up is Blake Abbey, actor, singer, and editor-in-chief at a magazine curated by, the biannual title that has been celebrating its 25th anniversary this season. Blake, who has been attending the shows while also overseeing the magazine's anniversary exhibition and talk series in Paris, gives us his own take on the creative director debuts that took place last week. He makes a very important point about designers being humans at the end of the day and deserving some grace. Let's hear from Blake Abbey.
I think politically we're in a very strange moment right now, and I think designers are responding in different ways to that. And so there is joy, there is great escapism in the industry. I think just also because there's so much change within the industry itself, there has been a lot of relief that is coming through. And at the same time, there is kind of this unsteady anxiety as to see how the next few months will play out with the moving designers, which I'm honestly quite over. I would love for.
I couldn't agree more.
I feel so poorly, and this is something that actually in the special issue we just brought out, we did have these kind of cross conversations as an insert in the magazine between different designers, and something that came up quite often between them. So we have a conversation between Olivier Teskins and Hussein Chalayan and Simone Rocha and Francesca Risto and a couple others, was that they remind us that they are people. And they all have incredible creative vision, and they are not just, cogs in a machine. And I feel quite badly for the designers who, we're all waiting for them to leave and their announcement to be made. And ultimately, this industry can be so quick to forget and so quick to move on to the next thing. And I think that we inherently lose the value of what this fashion world is. Yes, it's culture, yes, it's business, but ultimately it's culture and it's beautiful things, and we should be able to appreciate them. Even if they are leaving and moving on, we should be able to kind of be respectful of the amount of time that they put towards the work that they put out in the world.
We've seen some debuts already, which is sort of, I think, the tide turning and more positive conversation happening. What was your take on?
It was beautiful to see Julien's debut at Tris.
Some great Antwerp talent.
Exactly. Well, yeah, just stay tuned. No, Julien, it was really beautiful to see, I think. And it's great, actually, also Stefano and Mühlemeister it's great to see designers who have recognized that they've done their thing. They want to retire and they want to move on, and they've established an incredible, beautiful world and business. And how do they then nurture and foster the next part of the community? And with Julien and Dries and Stefano and Anne, they have relationships. It's really beautiful to see. Dries, after the show, came backstage and scooted right past me as I was with Julien and said, "You just I just want to say hi and thank you. That was beautiful," and then walked away. And so I think that there's a beautiful kind of moment we're at where there is a lot of shifting, but this idea of mentor and mentee relationship, or it's really beautiful. The baton is really being passed on rather than being taken away from some people. And I think that's a really great moment to kind of cling on to.
And it seems to be happening in Antwerp more than anywhere else.
I guess that's true. That is true. That is true. Yeah.
And also, I'm curious, we were speaking a little bit about it earlier. For you, given that your work is much more collaborative and slower, you don't need to follow the news or every show as closely. What is the value of going to Fashion Week, of seeing the shows, or what excites you most about the week and the experience?
there's no other industry where we can travel the world together and be together and watch beautiful things. That's what it's about. It's great to be able to see beautiful, creative people make incredible moves, risky moves sometimes, and celebrate creativity at its core.
That was Blake Abbey, editor-in-chief of a magazine curated by. And finally, we speak to Amy Smilovic, founder of New York-based fashion brand Tibi. As a designer and brand founder, Amy has a very unique perspective about everything happening in the industry at the moment. She has managed to carve her own path with Tibi, focusing on pragmatic clothing and connecting directly with her customers via her styling series online and her book, The Creative Pragmatist. She talks about the impact of the scaling up of the fashion industry and the need to slow down and reassess our definition of what makes a luxury product to begin with.
I looked at Coperni this morning, and I always love seeing what they're doing, because it makes you want to be that, even though I'm like, okay, don't worry, I'm not walking around in a chiffon mini dress and everything right now with black leather, but it looked amazing. So mostly I just look through and really appreciate what's happening out there. But it's been interesting with all this carousel of changes happening, and Sarah, my brand director, and I were saying that normally when we come to Paris, we have a whole list of things that we want to go out and see and buy. And I was thinking with all the changes, how it made me not so interested in buying from the brands. And I thought maybe I really have been wanting to buy from the people. Maybe I really was wanting to buy from Trotter or from Anderson or the people, not necessarily Caravan or from Loewe, but the people. And when you have that disconnect with the person, it feels a little less interesting to me. And, I don't know. I mean, it's hard because we're so deep in it, other people are just like, we don't even know the names of who's designing at these designer houses. But for me, it's deeply personal. I do. And
absolutely. And also, I think it's interesting to understand, why is this happening? Why are creative directors, maybe from your perspective, leaving so quickly, being pushed out of their positions? There has been churn and changes over the years, but never at such a rate, to the point where, like you say, we're all kind of disappointed and a little bit tired of it all.
I can't even imagine the tension in these houses. The crushing need for something new and game-changing. Yet you go around to the stores and I walk into Celine and I'm like, that is the same shoe for the last 3 years. You have no new shoes. Do you know how many brilliant shoe designers are in this area who have amazing ideas and artisans who want to execute them? And it's the same shoe. And you just go to brand after brand and it's the same things over and over and over. And maybe they've just put a bigger logo on it. And so I cannot imagine a company who has a mission to bring in the brightest, most aggressive creative, and yet they must put their arms out and then get handcuffed immediately to what they do. But then it's a handcuff where they're punished if you don't deliver. And then how could you do any of this if you have to reach $1 billion in sales? Because I'm sorry, I don't know how you are luxury at $1 billion.
And that's why it doesn't work most of the
times.
When it comes to Fashion Week as a format in and of itself, you still participate in New York Fashion Week
once
a year. Exactly. Do you still find it useful? Do you still find New York Fashion Week as well? That is also a collective and a schedule that has been changing quite fast. Do you still find it relevant and exciting?
For us, I find it useful once a year, but definitely not twice a year, especially not in New York in February. That was always like crazy. Even when it was good times, it was crazy. But I always said that we would not do shows if we didn't really feel like we were getting something demonstrative out of it. And after COVID, when we finally decided to do a show, I think it was 2 years after COVID, we did a show where it was 90% our customers, like the end consumer. And that was a game changer. And that's what I realized I loved. And it was kind of like when I first started doing runway shows in 2005. You would come out at the end of the show and everyone would be clapping and they were very into it. And then when the iPhones and everyone's photographing themselves, or they're photographing
or doing emails on the front row, which I have seen before.
Exactly. You would come out at the end and people were either running away, they had their phone, like it was just crickets. And it reminds me, I don't want the face lookers. You know, it's the customers who come to our show, they are so excited to see what we're doing next. They feel very much a part of the conversation, and we are so excited to see them. So it's those people, it's the influencers, I don't even like that word because there are people as well. And then it's the specialty stores. And for the specialty stores, it's a very important moment for them to be able to see creatively what your vision is and get them in your headspace early on, because we always push for newness. And when I'm designing a line with Tracy, she's pushing me in a way 8 months ahead of time where I'm rejecting stuff that it takes me a while to come around and embrace. So I know if I'm rejecting it and then I have to show it to someone and expect for them to fall in love with it, I need to give them time to understand it and see it through our lens. And the runway show really lets us get that message out there and let it soak in for a while, you know, so they're ready for it when it comes.
So still, fashion show's still important, but it's about who you choose to put on your front row.
Yes. Exactly.
Anyone that you are excited about, to either who has debuted or is debuting, any younger talent in New York?
I was out with Sherry McMullen, who owns the most beautiful boutique in San Francisco, and she was talking about Diotima, and she's really doing incredible stuff right now. And, these young designers are really... I hope they can find a way to disentangle anything from these department stores, because there's a path for them to thrive if they really focus on their core business.
That was Amy Smilovic, founder of Tibi. And that's all for today's show. Make sure you subscribe and stay tuned. We have more big interviews coming from next week. Today's episode was produced and edited by Lily Austin. I'm Natalie Theodosi. Thank you so much for listening.